Hello. This week I'm going to take you from the SPACECAT Rhetorical Analysis Close Reading tool to the draft, which is the next step of this process. So you notice, hopefully, that underneath each of these terms that I had you looking at to do the close reading on the text of your choice for rhetorical analysis, I have added the portion of the essay that I hope you end up linking the writing you did in the SPACECAT to help you develop the essay draft. So you need to have at least 2 full pages draft for this first part, and I encourage you to try and do the whole thing, but 2 pages minimum, because you need to be able to at least get into the body portion of the essay pretty well so that you can get good feedback on what you have put there by your peers. So first of all, I've actually shared with you an outline that I think might be helpful. So to start, let me open that and I'll show you what it looks like. So an introduction for this particular rhetorical analysis is going to be a minimum of 4 sentences long. And so you're going to start by looking at the global context, which was part of the SPACECAT. If you recall, context asked you to think about the things that are going on in the world, in the community, in history, things that are going on that surround the issues at hand when you're thinking about your text. So, for example, we have a silly version here with Wilbur Winkle. This is not one that you read, but he did write another letter to a zoo about how he was super mad that they closed early and he didn't get to see the best exhibits because he was not notified in ahead of time. So he planned his visit and he wasn't very happy about it. So this is a silly example, but to set the context, I have mentioned zoos in general in the first 2 sentences to encompass global context for all zoos, particularly those in America. So in this case, I'm not going worldwide, but because I can't speak to zoos in other countries, I haven't been to one. And writer's exigence, what has caused him to be mad without mentioning him. So I'm talking about context and also kairos, which I have mentioned, but briefly, so you may have missed it in my discussion of the appeals. So kairos means, loosely, time, and is it the right time or the right place for this particular argument? Well, of course, in Wilbur Winkle's opinion, yes. So you're going to set the stage for whatever it is that you're going to talk about specifically, but you're not going to mention the specific name of the writer or any specific text, like no quotes. Nothing like that goes into the first several sentences. In fact, I don't want you to have any quotes at all in the first paragraph. This needs to be a general introduction. If you think about the definition of the word introduction, that should make sense. So then you will explain, and you can flip these order, like if you want to have the global context and then, or national in this case, and then explain, and then give the writer's exigence, and then explain, that's fine. This is just what you should have in there. They don't have to necessarily go in that order. The one that has to go in order is you have to end your first paragraph with this thesis statement. So the thesis, if you remember from our discussion of SPACECAT, the thesis is your purpose. So in 1 sentence, maximum 2, what is it that the writer is arguing? So if you take a look at my sample again, you will see, well, this is just an outline sample, but here you go. In Wilbur Winkle's letter to Clint Fields, he expressed anger about certain exhibits closing early without clear notice and requested a change in policy. So that is what is he arguing and sort of what's his deal? Like why? So you need to think about that for your own purpose statement, and we're going to just use that synonymously with thesis for this particular essay. Notice I have here do not list devices. We're not looking at adding by doing blah, blah, blah. We don't need to do that. Just state your case and you can do the choices or rhetorical choices or devices later. So then a body paragraph after you get finished with your context and your thesis might look like this. You're going to have 5 sentences minimum, but you can go up to 8. I mean, you could have more than that. I don't want you to have less than that, but you would only need more than 5 if you were going to do a little bit more explaining, which is perfectly fine if you do more explaining. You don't want to do less. So first, the topic sentence has to link to the ways that Wilbur Winkle, which in your case it'll be whatever your speaker's name is, has expressed his anger and requested a change in policy. So that's where you bring in your choices, the rhetorical choices you have put down in your SPACECAT journal. So one way he expressed anger was with an anecdote. So he used an anecdote. That's a choice, a rhetorical choice. A little bit of summary here to give some background on this particular statement when he used an anecdote. Notice that I'm explaining what the anecdote was about here without using a quote. Paraphrasing is just a little bit better because it shows that you understand the text, but you run the risk of summarizing too much. Don't summarize too much. This isn't a summary, it's an analysis. Then finally, you're going to give, so that was my text evidence and a little bit of an explanation of the topic sentence. And then this was the evidence, right? So he details this frustration in the letter when he tells, well, detailed, that's a little redundant, but you get the point, about he and his girlfriend's visit ending poorly. That was the text that I paraphrased. Winkle went as far as saying that his entire experience caused his girlfriend to break up with him. Again, text evidence. This story shows blah, 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 right? We have to talk about analysis, and then we have to say what this shows and how this relates back to the thesis statement. So again, silly text here. None of yours are going to be quite this silly. If you get down to the conclusion, you will have an option here to tie it up with 4 sentences or more, no less. I don't know if you'll get there for your particular piece, but here's another example. So this is posted under the Unit 2 for rhetorical analysis, so you can check that out. Also, so back to the resources. Also what you have is a sample essay formatted, okay? So this has got some annotations. It tells you kind of how I am putting in quotes with page numbers and author's name to fulfill MLA format requirements. And you haven't done that yet because our other essay did not include outside sources, so make sure you take a look at this as well. It's also under Unit 2. This fleshes out, it's about a different letter, by the way, for Wilbur Winkle. It fleshes out how it might look when it's all together with a works cited page, but I don't have the full paragraphs here, so it's not making it to page 3. You do have to have 3 full pages, but you can at least see how it is, and it's got annotations in the margins. So hopefully this helps you to have some examples to take SPACECAT and draft it into a couple of pages for you to get some peer feedback. And you now have a little longer to do that, so hopefully this will help.